so confused. I see. Okay.
Okay, here we go. So true, false. Most millionaires are college graduates. Whoa! I think 12 said true and 12 said false. And then you get the answers? Okay, the correct answer is true. 4 of 5 millionaires are college graduates. 18% have master's degrees, 8% have law degrees, 6% have medical degrees, and 6% are PhDs. So it's above a 4-year college degree even. Okay? Ready?
Yeah, Holly.
What was that?
Who's kilometers?
What's wrong with you?
I'm like, what happened? We're doing geography. Okay. Kilometers. Most millionaires work fewer than 40 hours a week. False is correct. About 2/3 of millionaires work 45 to 55 hours a week. Good job.
See who's on top.
First.
Here we go. More than half of all millionaires never inherited money. You're good. That's true. Only 19% received any kind of income or wealth from a trust fund or estate. So only 19%. Most millionaires attended private schools. That is false. Most millionaires attend public schools. Women, listen up. Fewer than 20% of female millionaires attend a private school. Less than 20%. Whew. Most millionaires drive expensive new cars. That is false. Most millionaires spend under $30,000 for a car. Only 23% of millionaires drive a current year or a new model car. Okay? So do you guys know the prices of cars? Like $30,000 is pretty, that's a pretty normal price that even teachers can afford. Wow. Most millionaires work in glamorous jobs such as sports, entertainment, or high-tech. That is false. Most millionaires work in ordinary industries and jobs. They become wealthy because they make good use of market opportunities. There we are. Holly, pulling ahead here towards the top. Let's see. Most millionaires work for very large public companies. Here's some examples of large public companies. There they are. That is, you guys are correct. That is false. About 3 out of 4 millionaires are self-employed and consider themselves to be entrepreneurs. Most of the others are professionals such as doctors, accountants, and lawyers. Basically, those professional jobs.
Come on, Holly.
Many poor people become millionaires by winning the lottery. That is false. Good job, guys. You have a better chance to be struck by lightning than winning the lottery, okay? Keep that in mind. A college graduate earns almost double the annual income of a high school graduate. Yeah, you looked over there. That is true. So if you couldn't see from over there, but there's some numbers up here. High school graduate on average makes $32,000 a year. A college graduate on average makes $53,000 a year. So it's almost double. Good job.
Oh, I just went done.
Whew.
I literally went from 5 to 11.
0 points behind.
Millionaires tend to avoid the stock market.
I told you it was false.
You let me run
I told you it was false. All right, I'm done.
Okay, millionaires, that's false. They absolutely, your money grows faster in the stock market. People that make thoughtful financial decisions will invest smartly. So false is the correct answer on that one? Woo!
I'm not going back
Yeah. I love this one. Millionaires tend to be single rather than married.
I'm gonna lose.
Nice picture. Yeah, you guys are good. So millionaires do tend to stay married. They're married and they stay married because divorce is expensive. Okay, here we go.
Oh.
Drum roll.
Oh, Holly!
Yeah. Who's Holly? Good job. Bran, good job. You were up. Who's Bran? You? Good job. You were like
I was up and
there the whole time. Skylar. Kilometers came back up. Who's kilometers? Good job.
Nobody will admit it.
Came back in to be in the top 5. Good job.
Is that it?
So that kind of got me out of order, so we have to rethink where we were here. Okay. So here's what we just did. Oh, where you going? Okay. What were you thinking to do with this?
I would go ahead and do your intro, and
Yeah.
then we'll go
That's
to
what I was
these.
thinking too.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you guys are doing, what you're experiencing right now is financial literacy. Nevada has standards for financial literacy that we don't have a class for, and so our social studies department felt like this is a really important topic that you guys need to have some training in to learn a little bit about it, because Nevada was one of the hardest hit states during the recession that you guys were pretty little for, but you might remember some hard times. You might remember friends or family losing homes or losing jobs, all that kind of stuff. And that's a real concern to us, and we want to provide our social studies department wants to provide you with a way that you can make good financial decisions where you're kind of protected. No matter what the market is going to do, that you'll be able to bounce back and you'll have a little cushion for yourself and make thoughtful financial decisions. Okay, and the recession was a whole nother ball game. I'm not speaking to anyone's financial decisions in terms of that, but I think a lot of people got into situations because they maybe didn't have as much information as they might have in having had a class in finance or something like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through, there are 5 themes or units in this financial literacy program. This is what they're called. The first one is the economic way of thinking. The second one is earning income. The third one is money management, spending and credit, and then saving and investing. Okay? We're going to only do the first 2 right at the beginning of the year, the economic way of thinking and earning income. And then probably more towards January when we come back from break, we'll go into these other 3. Because you guys also have, obviously, class content besides financial stuff that you're going to be going into. So we're trying to get you some great information, and then we'll build on it later, but you still need to get your government. So the economic way of thinking is really important because it's just getting you to realize that there's a way to think about how you're spending your money. And you guys, you don't need to write this down. You're so good. You don't need to write that down if you don't want to, because we'll come back to it. But we want you to, as you're moving into next year, you're going wherever you're going to go, whatever you're going to do, we want to give you some tools that you'll be able to, even if you don't, get on a piece of paper and make a chart like we're going to do at one point, at least you will have, back in the recesses of your mind, you'll think, wow, I have this really important decision to make. Maybe I should write something down and see what my criteria are and those kinds of things. To give you a better way than just sort of, oh, it sounds fun, I should do it, right? That's not really a thoughtful decision, okay? Especially when you're spending a lot of money or there's a potential for spending a lot of money. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to talk about how to think about money, okay? So how are we going to do that? That's what we're going to start on today. And everyone got the learning guide, right? Perfect. Oh yeah, if you came in late, they're just back there on the table. You are familiar with learning guides, correct? You've seen these before. So if you would just take a look at, we're not going to look at this all right now, but we're just going to look at the essential questions, because this is about thinking about money. Some things that we're going to learn about are, in what ways do financial decisions affect one's standard of living? How does higher education increase opportunities and income? How does scarcity affect economic choices? Okay, and so you might not understand the word scarcity right now. That's okay, because we haven't talked about it ever. And maybe your family does talk about scarcity. That is awesome. Learning targets. We're going to consider this thing called opportunity cost. We'll start understanding what this weird term means of opportunity cost. We're going to examine personal financial choices. We're going to explain how saving contributes to financial well-being. And we'll apply consumer skills to the decision-making process. So what is it to be a consumer? You're spending, right? You have purchase power. You're going to be able to consume things. So we're going to give you what's called the decision-making model, where you will be able to, as I was saying, you'll be thoughtful about choices that you're going to make. Big choices. Obviously, if you're looking at cheese in the cheese section, you're not going to sit down and graph something out, I hope. But for those big life choices, we'll give you something a little bit more. Take a look at the key vocabulary. Today we'll probably be able to talk a little bit about choice, incentives, opportunity cost, scarcity, and voluntary exchange. Maybe not even scarcity today, but voluntary exchange. Okay, what those terms mean, okay? And we'll start applying them to financial choices that you can make. Take a look at that general traits of millionaires there. With your tables, you're all broken up into tables conveniently. What are some traits, without writing anything down now, but in general, based off of that super quick Kahoot that we did, what are some traits that you guys can come up with? What are some traits that you might be able to come up with? Just talk amongst the tables.
Ask them in the tables, what's the cost, like what's the choice, what's the benefit. Three little scenarios. After lunch. Right, you didn't get time to.
Well, no, that's okay.
Wow.
Are we gonna after talk about traits right now?
Yeah, I'll go to the trade slide right now.
Okay. Let's see if they come up with them. What are some traits? What are some traits that you remember? I heard one.
Educated.
They're educated. Remember, millionaires. Talk millionaires here, people. Educated. What else?
Understand the stock market?
Okay, they understand and use the stock market, right? Nice.
Usually, like they're risk takers because they invest and they start.
Okay, they're thoughtful risk takers,
Yeah.
right? Because they're not just randomly throwing money around, but they're like taking time to look at it. Nice. What else? Yeah.
They're like working hard.
They're hardworking people. That's a great one. I think you guys have actually another one. Yeah.
Wouldn't they be kind of frugal because like you have to be careful where you're putting your money in?
Right. And they don't drive new cars, right? They're not driving around in, my car, my Tesla. Right? I wish. Okay. So, good job. That you guys did. I think you got almost everyone. So, take a look at what you guys talked about. Add some to your list with the traits. So they have good educations. They are hard workers. Remember, 45 to 55 hours a week. They have money management skills, so they're being, and that's kind of the stock market, right? And there's a couple with the stock market, they invest in stocks for the long term. And the word frugal was perfect for number 4. They're spending less than they could spend. They could definitely afford more than a $30,000 car, but they're choosing not to. And they do take part in the stock market. And that is a risk. I mean, the stock market is a risk, but they're also, notice number 7, they're gathering information and they're making smart decisions. Usually people, when they're thoughtful and they're considering multiple things, they go with the one that's going to be safest for their hard-earned money, right? So they are investing in a risky system, but they're also being smart about it. So that brings the risk way down too, right? And we'll talk about that more in January with like money management, saving and investing. You know, there's different things you can do with your money. A savings account, if you want your money to grow, is quite possibly, besides just having it in a checking account, is the worst way to have your money grow. Very, very low interest rates. So we'll look at interest rates and different things of, you know, the idea of long term. Where's the best place to have your money grow long term, but still be relatively safe? So that's all stuff that we're going to talk about. Any questions about the traits of millionaires? Not one. Would you like to be a millionaire? Okay. Why would someone want to be a millionaire? Who wants to be a millionaire? Someone be honest here. Who wouldn't love to be a millionaire?
But without any responsibility of like tax pay or anything, then
Oh, you still have to pay taxes.
exactly. That's why I would like it. If I didn't,
Oh, you would only want to, you still have to pay taxes if you make like, you know what, less than, like, what is it, at $15,000 a year? You're still going to pay taxes. I would rather have more money and pay taxes. No, wealthy, okay. Okay, I don't know who you guys are listening to on our tax structure, but the thing about people often who are investing in the stock market, they're in different retirement accounts and things like that. There are smart things that you can do to protect your money from taxes, right? Most people do not pay whatever pay range you're in. There are deductions, standard deductions you can take. There are ways that if you're putting money away in a retirement account, you're not taxed on it until you start withdrawing that money. No one hardly ever pays the actual rate of pay. So, and it's not 50%. I don't know who's telling you that, but that's not true. So there are ways to be smart. Again, that's being smart, right? Making good financial decisions. But why, so even if you don't want to be a millionaire, what would be a nice thing about having extra money? Disposable income, yeah. Right, not having to worry about it, right? Not having to worry about money, you're financially secure. What else?
You have a lot more possibilities.
Okay, it opens up possibilities, right? For colleges, right? For the type of car you want to have. Yeah.
You have a lot more just disposable money to use. Like if you impulse buy something, you don't go, oh shoot, now I'm flat broke for the rest of the month or until next payday.
There you go.
So much extra.
So it increases your disposable income. Would anyone do anything nice with their money? Like, I would love to help Louisiana flood victims, right?
Tax write-offs.
You want more money so you can have more tax write-offs? Okay. That sounds like party right there. So I think, you know, does anyone have grandparents that they wish they could help take care of? Maybe your grandparents work and you would love to say, hey, you know what, you should retire and we got it, we got this, right? It doesn't, you don't have to be completely selfish with money, right? People do really great things with money. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? It's a worldwide organization that helps to better the lives of lots of people. So there's lots of different things we can do with money, but all those things are good, right? We want personal security, and we maybe want to hopefully help other people too. So that's why we are talking about this, to give you an opportunity, hopefully, to be able to realize some of those dreams that you have. So on the back of your learning guide for me, we're going to do something a little bit different than I've done before, but I think it will work. There's a lot of paper involved with this. I'm going to give you a lot of handouts today, but you're not going to write on a lot of the handouts. Okay? So here's the back of my paper here. So maybe about 2/3 of the way over, if you would just make a line that goes down about 2/3 or a third or halfway. This is not an exact science, for sure. And we're just going to take some notes here. This will be our note taker. One of them is going to be called A Mystery of Two Families. One of them is called The Boarding School Mystery. And the last one that we need the most space for is called the decision-making model. So if you do mess up and write on the notes, obviously, or the readings, it's fine. I'm not going to freak out. But it was just a way to save a few trees here. Mrs. Chandler's going to put the articles, anything that you get, it'll be on Edmodo, so you could always go back and read it. Or even if you find something super interesting, you can go back and even share it with your parents, right? It's fun to talk about that stuff. They might really have a lot of information that they never thought you'd be interested in, so they might not talk about that kind of stuff with you. Everyone good on that? Yes. Do we want to hold off on the scenarios, or should I go over them?
Let's hold on. Let's keep going. Okay.
Before we get much further, the state of Nevada also finds all of this very important. And they're the ones that funded this program originally for the financial literacy. So they like to know what you know before we do very much. So I'm going to give you guys, I hate doing this too, I'm going to give you a pre-test. Okay? And when you're done, I'm also going to give you, so don't write on the pre-test. And don't write on the, you're going to get just an introduction about the basic concepts of this first part, the economic way of thinking. It's super short. It's just front and back. Please don't write on this if you can help it. And then when you're done, when you're done with the pretest, go ahead and take this, you'll have this and read it, and then we'll just see if there's questions or anything.
National average is only like 70 on the same test.
Right. So what does that tell you?
Like there's not that much dedication in our education system to teaching people at a young age about financial, issues and how to work your way in the economy.
Yeah, I love that. How to work your way into the economy. Absolutely. So that stands out to me too, right? That half of seniors or high school age kids fail a test about personal finance. And then later on, as people probably stumble around in their financial decisions, eventually 70% of people. That still leaves a third of the population not knowing very much, right, about our economy. And we have a free, free market economy, and we're a capitalist nation. Those are things that we might want to know about, right? If we live maybe in a different economic system, it might not be that big of a deal, but when everything is so open and we're able to make so many choices, it does become a huge issue. That really stood out to me, too. Thank you for bringing that up. Anything else? Did anything else jump out at you? feel like there was one other one that someone mentioned last class, but I can't remember what it was. I can't remember. How did you answer on those questions? Do you guys know? I mean, do you have a plan for next year? Pretty much. I hear some laughing. It's in the works. What about credit cards? Who has a credit card in here?
The credit card or debit card?
Totally different, right? Credit card. Credit card. Okay. Who has a debit card? Like checking, right? That's what we use now. We used to have this thing called checks. Who's written a check in here? Has anyone written a check? Okay. And I mean, we hear horror stories about credit cards and that kind of thing. So when we talk about this thing here, spending and credit, there's a good use for credit. There's a reason to build credit. It's not a horrible thing unless you misuse it or make bad choices about it, right? So those are the kinds of things that we want to talk to you about. So hopefully if you did something like this, if you took a test about personal finance by the time we're done, maybe when you're entering college they give you personal finance, what does this person know? We hope that you would score much higher, right? We want to give you those tools, and there isn't a lot of information in this country to build knowledge at a young age about finances. There's a whole TED Talk even about that investing in the stock market should be taught, because over the long term, the earlier you save, the more, over a long course of time, you're going to have way more stability in your older age than you would if you start once you enter the workforce. So there's all kinds of reasons why we should be teaching this, and we haven't been. So here we go. Don't hang on to this right now, unless you really wanted to get a chance to read it and didn't get to read it as close as you wanted. Otherwise, if you could just pass those to the center, you guys just one side or the other. Hopefully be able to figure that out. As you're looking back at the learning guide, too, notice some of those questions. Can I borrow your learning guide real quick? Everyone, thank you. We're looking about financial decisions to affect one's standard of living. That's really where we're trying to get us. We're looking at increased opportunity and income based off of your education. These are all things, and getting us to think about how we're spending our money, choices that we make with our money. Okay, is kind of where we're going. So this piece of paper you are going to keep. Okay, it's cut in half. It's got hole punch. Actually, remember that. Sorry, remember your learning guides to hole punch. I feel like I failed you. Could have done better, and I didn't. So take a look at this thing called the Handy Dandy Guide, which is the lamest name ever. But that's what they call it. All right. So take a look at the Handy Dandy Guide. Little piece of paper, not a lot of words on it. Doesn't seem, that important. But it's super duper. It's sort of like the thing we're going to base everything on right now, okay, in terms of thinking about money. So the reason I continue to call it the Handy Dandy Guide is because our personal finance unit that we are using, or program, keeps using this word, the Handy Dandy Guide, through the whole thing. So you need to be able to refer back to this. You should ultimately keep it with your learning guides, a safe place where you're not going to lose it. But I like to say that it's really a dumb name for an important idea called economic reasoning. Economic reasoning is hugely important. And I don't feel like that name, Handy Dandy Guide, really gives it that importance that it should have. So what is reasoning? When we say that we're doing reasoning, what are we doing?
It'd be like weighing the good and the bad things in order to make a decision.
Okay, we're weighing options, right? Or we're thinking, it sounds like thinking thoughtfully, right? We're really taking time to think. Do you guys do that at school?
No.
Maybe not about money, but about other things. Critical think. Have you done critical thinking before?
Yes.
Your teachers say we're going to critical think. right? You're going to do critical thinking. That's what this is. You're doing critical thinking about financial decisions, about your personal economics, and that's why this is so important. So look at those steps there. Here are some steps to help you make good economic decisions. We're going to look at some scenarios. We're going to read about a scenario here in just a sec, and then we're going to look at these up here. So first off, people choose. So basic, right? It depends on the choice you're going to make. That's going to really affect you. Number 2, all choices involve costs. People respond to incentives in predictable ways. People create economic systems that influence choices and incentives. People gain when they trade voluntarily. And people's choices have consequences for the future. So we're going to be talking more about this, but I think some of these are a little confusing. And there's a short reading that I'm going to have you do that helps to explain what each one of these means. And then we're going to apply these 6 choices to, or 6 steps that people are doing to these scenarios. Okay? And so we've got some questions here that you're going to answer within your groups. Okay? So what I want you to do right now is keep this out and go to the back of your learning guide. Because you made that area for notes, right? On this article, it's a little bit longer, but it's a scenario of 2 families who are going through they're doing economic reasoning, but they're doing it in totally different directions. Okay? So it's the Robinsons and the Murrays. And on the back of this reading are some questions. You've got 6 questions, I think. So if you would, after you're done reading, don't write on this, but just do bullet points. Okay, bullet points. I would love for you to talk to your table partners and get some really good answers on these. Okay, and you're just going to do some bullet points, very simple, about these families and how differently they spend, and applying also this handy-dandy guide to that. Okay, does that make sense? What we're going to do? It's a little bit longer than your introduction that you just read. But it's not, I don't think it's difficult reading. It's real. Oops, sorry. I made 30 copies.
Okay, you should be reading, so it should be quiet in here.
Concepts that came up that's on your learning guide is that idea of opportunity cost. And it sounds very easy. What's the definition of it?
The next best choice you could have made.
Right, I know, but then they didn't. Stop it. Right, the next best choice you could have made, but didn't. So what the heck does that mean? That seems very confusing, right? Kind of a weird thing to say. So let's talk about this for a second. So an opportunity cost is a choice that you could have made that you didn't, right? Because people choose. So if we look back at our handy-dandy guide, people choose. We make choices all the time. So if I went to Starbucks today, I made a choice, right? Or if I went to McDonald's because I knew I could get a coffee for $1 rather than a coffee for $2.50, I still made a choice, right? So the opportunity cost if I went to McDonald's, my next best choice I could have made would be to go to Starbucks, right? And there's a different outcome, or I could have just made coffee at home, for Pete's sake, right? And just brought coffee to school, and the next best choice I could have made would be to go buy a coffee somewhere. Does that make sense? Trying to put it just really basic, because I think it's hard to explain to you guys. I just understand. I think it's difficult to explain. But people choose, so I'm looking at that handy-dandy guide. All choices involve costs, right? My choices are either going to be spending money or not spending money. I'm not necessarily saving money, because it might just be my checking account, it might be in my wallet. It's not really doing anything, you know what I mean? It's not building for me, but it's just there, and I'll have it for something else. So maybe an opportunity cost if you buy a coffee, or whatever you buy, is that when you need gas tomorrow, you don't have as much money to put in your gas tank, and you're like, oh man, I really wanted that Starbucks, but now I really need some gas too, right? That's an opportunity cost. That's a choice, right? So when you look at this list, people respond to incentives. What's the incentive here? When we're talking about coffee or filling cars with gas, whatever. You want to use my scenario? Okay, so let's say I buy a coffee. What's the incentive? What was my incentive to do that? It's faster, it's more convenient, right? It's an incentive, it's hot in my hand when I get to school, it's not cold, I didn't spill it all over myself, right? Those are all incentives. And that's pretty predictable. Starbucks knows it, that's why they've opened stores like literally across the street from each other. So by doing that, I'm just going down this list. There's an economic system there, right? I'm going to do it voluntarily, we'll deal with that, but there's also consequences for the future, right? So if every single day, I'm creating an economic system, if I go every single day in my household and I buy a coffee, my budget has to be built for that, right? It has to be built for that, it has to be ready for that, and I'm probably sacrificing somewhere else, right? Because those are expensive coffees, really, when you can just pour it into a cup on your own free, well, for like a big old thing of coffee. And the long-term consequence, I guess, or thing is that there's less money in my monthly budget for that, and or I'm putting away less into a savings account or into my kid's college fund, or, you know what I mean? There's a consequence, and the consequences are all different. It depends on your financial situation, your financial choices. That's just mine. You know what I'm saying? It's all very individualized. Our personal finance is very individualized. We can't just blanket say, this is what you need to do. We can give general suggestions, but it's not going to fit everybody's thing, okay? So we're just about to wrap up today. Were there any, I want to go over a couple of scenarios. Are there any questions about, I think opportunity cost is the most confusing part of that whole thing, right? Because you can see how the Robinsons and the Murrays spend differently. That's very obvious. Can you see their consequences for the future? Right? One is going to be more worrisome, and one is going to be more financially sound. So let's look here. Do we have time, or do you need to?
No, go ahead.
Should we just do one today and open up next? Okay. So let's look at this scenario, and then we're going to keep your handy-dandy guide out so that you can look at these questions, and we're just going to be pretty quick. Okay? You're talking in your groups. You're not writing anything down. At age 18, you decide not to drink soda from the vending machine and save $1.50 a day. You invest this $1.50 a day at 8% interest until you are 67 years old. At age 67, your savings from not buying soda from the vending machine are almost $300,000. So, because if you have 30 days in a month, right? And so $1.50 a day, you just start putting that into a stock market, into some stock or a mutual fund or something, and it grows on average at 8%, you end up with $300,000. So go through those questions. Do this as a group really quick. What choice is being made? What is the cost? Is it voluntary or involuntary? Is it a short-term or long-term decision? And ultimately, what is the gain? And that's going straight off of your handy-dandy guide. Okay, so you're talking to your group. Have a spokesman for your group. Who's going to talk for your group here in just a sec? This is how you're getting out of here today. Maybe, I don't know.
Like every single day you put a dog with me and take off the day.
I think they're saying you literally put in $1.50 a day, but what this person probably does is goes by the month and just sends a monthly amount. But they've decided not to do that $1.50 a day and just take a monthly. Yeah. Because that would be weird.
Yeah, I was like, well, like, alright, gotcha. Well, the next question is, how much money did it save outside of your saying 8% interest? You know what I mean? Probably still a lot of money.
How much money what?
How much money did it save if they just, like, put that in a checking account?
Oh, they make way more money. And we'll talk about that.
Well, and then what kind of setup do you do with interest? Is that consistent? You know, like what kind of, is that like a predictable amount?
Yes, it is. It used to be 10%, but then like with the recession and different downturns we've had, it's really more 8. It's like very normal over time. That doesn't mean you're not going to get, you know, ups and downs.
Like pretty consistent.
But from 18 to 67, you've got a big window. Yeah. So some years you might make 14%, the next year you make 6. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty average. That's a realistic.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready? Let's see. Ladies in the middle here. Who's your spokesperson?
Chloe.
Okay, Chloe. What choice is made?
To not buy the soda.
Great. What's the cost? Is it voluntary or involuntary?
The cost is like it doesn't get to have the soda and it's voluntary.
Mm-hmm. And does the cost have to be good and bad? I mean, that's kind of like he's sacrificing, right? What's another cost? Right, so he's putting money elsewhere, right? You're diverting your funds, right? That's also a cost, right? So you're willing. You could even say a cost here is like health-wise, not drinking that much soda every single day. Could also be a really beneficial cost, especially at 67, where you haven't had as much, you know, soda and chemicals and stuff in your body maybe, right? So even your medical costs might be less if we really want to like go far with this. And it's all voluntary. So what kind of decision? Long term, right? And the gain, what's the gain? Right. By just saving, what, $50 a month maybe? You're saving $300,000. So some really great questions. Did anyone wonder about that 8%? It's pretty realistic for the stock market. And that's why when we talk about saving and investing and even money management, we're going to look at different places you can put your money. If you're going to do a long-term thing where you are not touching that money, you're going to pretend it doesn't exist, 8% is a reasonable average over time, 18 to 67, that's a long time, right? That's decades. So over the decades, you're going to have ups and downs in the market, right? But over time, it always goes up, okay? And so in general, 8%, it used to be 10%, and then over the years, they've made it 8% is your average growth. That's what you should be getting. If you got into, you know, like sound, like a mutual fund and things like that, okay? So that's a pretty realistic thing. Let's see, we need to wrap up. Hopefully you learned a little bit today so far. We're going to continue next class. Keep that handy-dandy guide with your learning guide. And then we're going to do a couple more scenarios just to kind of refresh ourselves. Yeah. Next class.
Back in the folder, or do we take it with us?
Folder.
Folder.
Put it in your folder. Yeah.
Good question.
So,
I've seen this folder just like right.
that's my attendance system.
Oh yeah.
And for stuff like this, you just slide it in your folder and then we'll just grab it next class and be ready to go.
Okay, so what do we use our binders?
You use your binders for everything else, but this is just stuff that's not completed in the course of a class period.
So I'm just like, we need like a certain size of binder. It's like
2 inches usually ends up being the best size. Yep. Yep.
Thank you.